Many schools in America don't look like places for learning. They look like places for control. Gray walls, long hallways, bright fluorescent lights, rows of hard plastic chairs and cameras watching. It feels more like a prison than a school. But this isn't just about the looks. It's about what these buildings make you feel. Let's talk about how school design shapes how students feel, act, and think, and why it's time for something better. Many schools and prisons in the United States share a striking resemblance. This isn't by chance. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, some of the same architects and firms designed both. Their focus was order, control, and efficiency. They created long, narrow hallways lined with uniform rooms, each with few windows and only one or two doors. Entry and exit points were limited. Movement was meant to be watched and directed. These choices came from a clear goal: keep people in line and make supervision easy. The roots of these designs go back to the Industrial Revolution. During this time, society changed fast. Factories became the center of work life. Machines needed human workers to do the same tasks over and over. As factories grew, so did the need for workers who could follow orders, show up on time, and repeat routines without question. Schools adapted to meet that need. Education shifted to a factory model, where students moved through a system in fixed stages. Teachers became like foremen. Students were the workers. This model valued standardization over curiosity. Schools needed to produce the same kind of graduate every time: obedient, punctual, and able to sit still for hours. Creativity wasn't a priority. In fact, it often got in the way. The system was built to train future workers, not to inspire future thinkers. Classrooms were identical because students were treated as interchangeable parts. Every bell signaled a change in task, just like in a factory. Each subject had its time slot. Every day followed the same routine. This design made it easier to manage large groups of students. One adult could watch over 30 kids in a room. From the hallway, a principal or guard could scan through open doorways to check behavior. Stairwells and doors were placed to reduce escape or unsupervised movement. These same features appear in prisons. They allow staff to monitor people without much effort. Both institutions, at their core, are about control. Imagine a student walking into school in 1920. The building is tall, gray, and quiet. Hallways echo with footsteps. Each room looks like the next. Rows of desks face a blackboard. The teacher stands at the front and lectures. No talking, no wandering. Now picture a prisoner entering a cell block. The setup is different in purpose but similar in form. Long corridors, small, windowless rooms, heavy doors. It's hard to ignore the overlap. Though schools have changed since then, many of these old design ideas remain. Buildings still emphasize control and efficiency. Space is rarely flexible. Hallways still guide traffic in strict lines. Doors still lock. These choices affect how students feel and behave. A space built to watch and contain sends a clear message: don't step out of line. In both schools and prisons, the building itself becomes part of the discipline system. It's not just about what happens inside the walls, it's how those walls shape what's possible. After the Columbine school shooting in 1999, many schools across the country changed how they handled safety. They added metal detectors, surveillance cameras, and security guards. High fences and locked gates became normal. Some schools even redesigned their buildings to make it harder for someone to enter without permission. These steps were meant to protect students, but they also changed how schools feel. Walking into school started to feel more like going through airport security or entering a government building. Students passed through metal detectors at the door. Security officers checked bags. Visitors had to be buzzed in through locked entryways. Inside, cameras tracked every hallway and stairwell. These changes made it clear: safety was now the top concern. But while these measures may stop certain threats, they also send a message. They tell students they are always being watched. For some, this feels reassuring. For others, it creates stress. The sight of metal bars and surveillance cameras can make a school feel less like a place to learn and more like a place to be controlled. A student might wonder if their school expects something bad to happen. That worry alone can make the space feel unsafe. Research shows that more security doesn't always lead to fewer problems. In some schools, metal detectors and cameras have done little to stop violence. Instead, they can make students feel anxious. They might act out more often or avoid school entirely. One study found that students in schools with heavy surveillance were more likely to feel distrustful of staff. When young people feel like suspects instead of learners, it affects how they engage with school. The impact of these measures also varies depending on the community. In wealthier districts, security upgrades may include more staff training and better building design. In under-resourced areas, the response often focuses on stricter rules and more policing. Students in these schools may face daily searches, frequent discipline, and constant observation. This uneven approach raises concerns about fairness and equity. Picture a teenager walking into school each morning. They pass through a metal detector, empty their backpack for a guard, and see cameras following their steps. In the classroom, they know someone could be watching the hallway through a screen. Even if nothing happens that day, the feeling stays. It's a sense of being watched, not trusted. These security steps were added to make schools safer. But safety isn't just about stopping harm. It's also about feeling calm, supported, and seen. When the environment feels tense or suspicious, students may shut down. They may stop talking to adults or hide problems they face. In the end, the very systems meant to protect them can make it harder for schools to support them. The focus on security becomes a trade-off. Less space for trust, more space for control. Many schools across the country operate under a strict system of rules and routines. These rules often resemble those found in prisons. Students must ask for permission to do almost anything, leave their seat, speak during class, or use the restroom. Teachers act as gatekeepers, deciding when and how students can move or interact. The goal is control. This approach creates a culture where obedience matters more than understanding or curiosity. The daily schedule adds to this sense of control. Bells ring at fixed times, signaling when students should switch classes, eat lunch, or go home. These bells divide the day into chunks, much like shifts in correctional facilities. Each period runs on a timer. There is little room for flexibility. Students must follow this routine, even if they need more time on an assignment or a moment to regroup. The system is designed to keep the group moving as one. Silence is often expected. Talking out of turn can lead to punishment. In some classrooms, students are told to keep their voices down or stay silent unless called on. This discourages open discussion and makes it harder for students to engage. For some, especially younger children, this expectation can feel unnatural. Still, the pressure to stay quiet is strong. It sends a message: speak only when told, follow the rules, don't push back. Zero-tolerance policies have made this culture even more rigid. These rules apply the same punishment no matter the context. A student who talks back or forgets a school ID might receive a detention or suspension. There's little room to ask why the behavior happened or how to respond with support. This one-size-fits-all model doesn't allow for mistakes, learning moments, or personal growth. It focuses on punishment, not improvement. This kind of system can hurt students. It strips away their sense of control and increases stress. For many, school becomes a place where they are told what to do at every turn. They have few choices and fewer chances to express themselves. Over time, this can lead to frustration and disengagement. Some students stop caring. Others act out. Either way, the system sees these reactions as more rule-breaking, which leads to more punishment. The impact is worse for students from marginalized communities. Research shows that Black and brown students are more likely to be punished for the same behavior as their white peers. They are suspended more often and referred to law enforcement at higher rates. These patterns reflect larger social biases. In effect, the school becomes a place where these students face double pressure: to learn and to protect themselves from being seen as a threat. Imagine a student who forgets their hall pass. A teacher stops them in the hallway. The student explains they were just using the restroom. Still, they are written up for being out of class without permission. Later, they sit in detention instead of attending their next lesson. The rule is enforced, but the learning is lost. In systems like this, discipline often overshadows education. Schools are meant to be places where students grow, explore, and learn. But when the design and rules focus only on control, something important gets lost. Creativity, curiosity, and self-expression begin to fade. Students stop asking questions. They start doing only what they're told. The space becomes more about keeping order than helping minds grow. In many schools, the rules are strict and the space is cold. Students walk single file through narrow halls. They sit in rows at desks, facing the same direction. They raise their hands to speak and must ask to use the restroom. These small limits add up. Over time, they send a clear message: don't stand out, don't speak up, and don't take risks. For some students, this feels stifling. They may have ideas they want to share or questions they want to ask, but the setting tells them to stay quiet. Instead of being encouraged to explore new thoughts, they are told to stay on task. Projects are short, tests come often, time for play, art, or creative thinking shrinks. The school starts to feel like a place where freedom is taken away. This is even more true in under-resourced schools. These schools often have fewer teachers, fewer supplies, and older buildings. The walls may be cracked, the windows might not open. Security guards may stand at every entrance. Metal detectors sit at the front door. The message is clear: this place is not built for joy or wonder. It is built to keep things under control. Students in these environments often feel disconnected. They may not see their culture, language, or experiences reflected in the classroom. Lessons may not relate to their lives. If they act out or seem uninterested, they may be labeled as problem students. But often, they are reacting to a system that does not see them. They feel watched, not supported, taught, but not heard. The comparison between school and prison is not just about buildings, it's about how people are treated inside. One teacher once said, "School, like prison, is a place of death, death of creativity, death of ideas, death of hope." That may sound extreme, but for many students, it rings true. When school is only about rules, grades, and discipline, it stops being a place of growth. Picture a student who loves to draw. She doodles in the margins of her notebook during math. A teacher sees her and takes the notebook away. "Focus," the teacher says. "No drawing in class." The student nods, but the spark is gone. She learns that her interests don't belong here. Over time, she draws less, she speaks less, she feels less. That quiet loss of joy, of voice, of self is not easy to measure, but it happens every day in schools built more for control than care. What's lost is not just a moment, it's a part of who the student might have become. Eastside High School in Newark, New Jersey, looks and feels more like a high-security facility than a place for learning. Students enter the building through metal detectors. Security guards stand at entrances and patrol the hallways. High fences surround the school. Surveillance cameras cover almost every hallway and corner. The school controls all access points, which means no one can enter or leave without going through a checkpoint. These features are not unusual anymore. After school shootings like Columbine, many schools across the U.S. adopted similar designs in the name of safety. But for the students inside, the message is clear. This place is built for control, not for trust. The inside of the school reflects that same message. Long, narrow hallways stretch in straight lines with few windows. The classrooms look nearly identical. Each room has uniform desks, white walls, and harsh fluorescent lights. There is very little natural light, color, or softness. These design choices are not random. They come from a long history. Schools in the late 19th and early 20th centuries were modeled after factories. The goal was to teach children how to follow routines, obey rules, and become productive workers. Architects designed schools with control in mind, not creativity. The layout of Eastside High still follows that model today. For many students, this kind of environment creates stress. It doesn't feel like a place made for them. It feels like a place meant to watch them, to manage them, to contain them. Students have said the school reminds them of a detention center. That isn't just about how it looks. It's about how it makes them feel. When every move you make is watched, when you can't leave a classroom without permission, when cameras track your steps, it's hard to feel free. It's hard to feel trusted. Imagine a student who wants to take a break after a stressful morning. There is nowhere quiet to go. There are no soft chairs or quiet nooks. There is no place with natural light to help calm the mind. If that student steps into the hallway, a security guard might stop them and ask where they're going. If they don't have a pass, they may get detention. This doesn't make school feel safe. It makes school feel like a punishment. The focus on surveillance and control might seem like a way to prevent problems, but research has shown that these measures don't always improve safety. In some cases, they increase student anxiety and reduce trust between students and staff. Students may act out more in environments where they feel watched but not supported. And when schools spend money on cameras and metal detectors instead of counselors or support staff, the message becomes even clearer. Discipline comes before care. Control comes before connection. This is what students at Eastside High live with every day. And it shapes how they see school, not as a place to grow, but as a place to get through. In Wilkinson County, Mississippi, schools became known not for academics, but for strict control. Students in this rural district were treated more like inmates than learners. They went through daily pat-downs before entering school buildings. Security guards searched backpacks and asked questions without a clear cause. The goal, according to school leaders, was to keep order, but many students and families saw it differently. They felt targeted, watched, and pushed out. Civil rights groups filed lawsuits, saying the schools violated basic rights and created a hostile learning environment. Inside the schools, the rules were strict and unforgiving. Students had to stay silent in the hallways. They needed a pass to use the restroom. Teachers and administrators enforced zero-tolerance policies that left no room for context or second chances. A student who spoke out in frustration or forgot a school ID might be suspended. A minor disruption in class could lead to removal from school. These policies, while meant to ensure discipline, often punished students for normal behavior. Imagine a student who comes to school tired from a rough night at home. They arrive a few minutes late, only to be searched and questioned. When they show frustration, a teacher sees it as defiance. That student is written up and sent to the office. They might miss class, fall behind, and face more punishment. Over time, they may start to believe that school is not a place for them. They may stop coming altogether. This kind of system hits marginalized students the hardest. In Wilkinson County, most students are Black and come from low-income families. The rules and punishments often reflect deeper inequalities. Students report feeling that they are not trusted. They are not asked what they need or how they feel. They are told what to do, how to act, and what will happen if they step out of line. The physical space adds to the sense of control. Classrooms are bare and rigid. Hallways are lined with security cameras. There are few signs of joy, comfort, or creativity. There are no murals painted by students, no spaces to relax or talk openly. The environment tells students that their presence is something to manage, not something to value. When discipline becomes the top priority, learning often suffers. Teachers spend time enforcing rules instead of building trust. Students who feel unsafe or unwelcome are less likely to participate. They are more likely to act out, withdraw, or give up. In Wilkinson County, the focus on order and obedience created schools that looked secure on paper but felt cold and punishing in practice. This is not just about policy. It's about how young people are treated every day and what that teaches them about school, about adults, and about themselves. Before its redesign, Manual High School in Denver, Colorado, felt more like a correctional facility than a place for learning. The building had tall concrete walls and barred windows that blocked natural light. Inside, the halls were narrow and dim. Classrooms were uniform and bare, with desks in rows and little color or decoration. The space looked cold and unwelcoming. It reflected a focus on control and order, not creativity or connection. The school's culture matched its design. Discipline was strict. Students followed rigid rules enforced by bells and passes. Speaking out, showing emotion, or arriving late could lead to punishment. Zero-tolerance policies left little room for understanding or support. For many students, especially from marginalized backgrounds, school felt like a place where they were watched, not heard. They learned to stay quiet and follow rules, not because they were learning, but because they were afraid of what might happen if they didn't. Imagine a student arriving at school tired or upset. They walk into a gray building with no welcoming signs or soft spaces. They enter a classroom with harsh lights, no windows, and desks bolted in place. If they speak without permission or don't follow directions exactly, they're sent to the office. Over time, that student may stop engaging. They may stop believing that school is meant for them. Manual High developed a reputation for high suspension rates and low morale. Students dropped out. Teachers struggled. Community members saw what was happening and pushed for change. Families, educators, and activists demanded a new approach. The school eventually closed, then reopened with a new design and new values. The redesign aimed to build a space that felt safe and welcoming. Architects replaced the barred windows with large, clear glass to bring in natural light. They opened the hallways and added soft colors and natural materials. Classrooms were redesigned to support group work, discussion, and flexibility. Murals, plants, and comfortable seating made the school feel more like a place for people, not just students to control. This new space changed the school's message. It told students, "You matter. You are trusted here." Teachers shifted too. They focused more on relationships and support, less on punishment. Instead of sending students out for every mistake, they asked questions, gave time, and offered help. Students responded. They started speaking up more, participating in projects, and connecting with their teachers. School no longer felt like something to endure. It felt like a space where they belonged. Manual's story shows how school design affects everything, from student behavior to learning to mental health. A school doesn't need bars and concrete to keep order. It needs light, trust, and care. When schools feel less like prisons and more like communities, students show up as themselves, ready to learn. Some schools are starting to look and feel very different from the ones many people grew up in. Educators and architects are asking new questions about how buildings shape learning. Instead of focusing only on control and safety, they're thinking about comfort, care, and connection. Claire Latané, a landscape architect and professor, calls for schools that heal. She says the way a school looks and feels can support students' mental health and well-being. When a space is calm and inviting, students can focus, feel safe, and be themselves. Design plays a big part in this shift. Natural light helps students stay alert and improves their mood. Big windows and skylights bring daylight into classrooms, reducing the need for harsh overhead lights. Outdoor access allows students to take breaks, eat lunch, or even learn outside. Gardens and courtyards offer space to breathe and reset. These features aren't just pretty, they support focus and lower stress. Color also matters. Many older schools use beige, gray, or dull green paint. These colors can feel cold and lifeless. Newer designs use softer shades, light blues, greens, and warm neutrals to make spaces feel calm. These colors don't distract, but they help students feel more relaxed. When walls include student artwork or murals that reflect the local culture, students feel seen and valued. The space starts to feel like it belongs to them. Furniture and layout can change how students behave and learn. Rows of desks often limit movement and interaction. Flexible spaces use tables, cushions, and different seating options. Students can choose where and how to sit. A small reading area with soft chairs gives one student a place to work alone. A round table gives others a space to work in groups. These options help students focus in ways that match their needs. One well-known example is the redesign of Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut. After the tragic shooting in 2012, the new building had to balance safety with openness. The architects did not want the school to feel like a fortress. Instead, they used gentle slopes, large windows, and natural materials like wood and stone. Classrooms face wooded areas. Hallways are wide and filled with light. Doors are secure, but not heavy or harsh. There are quiet spaces for students to calm down. The design keeps students safe without making them feel locked in. Not every school can build a brand new campus, but even small changes help. A few indoor plants can soften a room. Natural textures, like wood surfaces or fabric curtains, make a space feel warmer. Hanging murals or using student-created art brings color and pride into the building. These small shifts show students that someone cares. They also make the school a place people want to be. Picture a student walking into a classroom filled with sunlight, walls painted in soft green, and tables set up in small clusters. There's a corner with beanbags and books. A tall plant sits by the window. The student feels welcome. They take a breath. They're ready to learn. Every school building sends a message. The layout, the walls, the lighting, and the rules shape how students see themselves and their place in the world. When students walk through metal detectors, sit in windowless rooms, and move only when told, they learn more than math or grammar. They learn what adults believe about them. They learn whether they are trusted, whether they belong, and whether their voices matter. When a school looks like a prison, lined with locked doors, controlled by bells, filled with cameras, it teaches students that control is more important than curiosity. It tells them they must follow rules without question. It says safety comes from being watched, not from being supported. These messages run deep. They shape how students behave, how they feel about learning, and how they see their future. We must ask hard questions. Are we preparing kids for freedom or for confinement, for critical thinking or for compliance? If school teaches children to sit still, stay silent, and obey, it may succeed in creating order, but it does not prepare them to lead, to solve problems, or to build something new. Learning takes trust, risk, and space to fail. None of that can happen in a room built only for control. Imagine two students. One walks into a classroom with natural light, soft colors, and open seating. She chooses where to sit. She works with a group, then takes time to reflect on her own. She asks a question and is heard. The other student enters a room with harsh lights, desks in rows, and a teacher behind a desk. He waits for instructions. He speaks only when called on. His day moves by bells and rules. These two students will leave school with very different ideas about who they are and what they can do. This is not only about rich versus poor schools. It's about priorities. Many districts invest in surveillance tools before they fix broken windows. Many schools cut art and music but pay for more security staff. These choices show what we value and what we fear. They reveal a belief that young people, especially those in Black, brown, and low-income communities, need control more than they need care. If we care about learning, growth, and mental health, we need to rethink not just what we teach, but where we teach it. The classroom should be a space that invites thought, not fear. It should be a place where students feel seen, not watched. This is not about making schools fancy. It's about making them human. Every student deserves a space that says, "You matter here, your mind matters, your future matters." We must decide if our schools will reflect trust or suspicion, and what kind of world we are preparing young people to enter.